we need to change things. We need to reinvigorate our national identity, make it more inclusive and cognizant of our past. And in order to do that, I propose that we move Australia Day to Halloween. Right? Because that way, Indigenous kids can knock on your door and be like, hey, trick or treaty, and oh look, I don't think you gave that joke what it deserves, to be honest. I took the rest of the day off after I wrote that. I put my feet up on some stolen land, you know what I mean?
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hello and welcome to Better Than Q&A for everyone watching at home, and to the... How many people have we got in the room tonight? We've got about 70 people, I think, registered. Thank you all for coming and supporting this new venture. You may have seen us earlier laughing because I'm surrounded by some very funny people. And I'm not referring to the comedian. I'm referring to this man, Peter Boghossian. Let me introduce him.
Keep expectations as low as possible.
His bio, his fame and his infamy is probably a bit too long for me to go into. So you may recognize him from, I guess, the Sokal Squared, the hoax papers in academia, where he showed how ridiculous some of our peer review process is. But more importantly, he's on a mission to defeat wokeism. So very grateful for you to come all the way from America, Peter. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate being here. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the warm welcome, and I genuinely appreciate everybody spending time with us tonight. So we're gonna play some games and do some fun things, and hopefully be very engaging and possibly outraging. So we'll see.
You want to be outraged? Do you want to hear his Australian accent? It is horrible. You can stand down. We don't need any comedy from you tonight. Ready? Can you show me your Australian accent? This is horrific.
Oh no. Good day, mate.
What were you going on about an island and all this earlier? Welcome to the island.
Welcome to the island. Ahoy.
It sounds worse than the Simpsons Australian accent.
Yeah, I have trouble with the accent, but when because I grew up thinking there's a very exotic land, and I never quite mastered. So to me, it was always like, I want no meat on my pizza. It sounded very similar to like a Pakistani accent to me.
I keep telling him he's not lazy enough with his diction. His elocution needs to loosen the jaw. Okay, before we get started, let me tell you about what's on the screen behind us. Tonight, all of the questions that you've submitted, thank you very much. We'll get through as many as we can. You get to vote on them. What do you want answered? There's far too many for us to go through. So go to menti.com and you can enter in this code at the top, 3401452. And you can even enter your own questions, though I don't know how we'll get to those tonight. At least vote on what you want us to talk about. But tonight, I thought we would all loosen up a little drug I like to call a legal drug called comedy. This, my friends, is Corey White. He's probably one of Australia's most cancelled comedians. Is that fair to say? Been kicked off a number of Twiggy mine sites. Well done. And tonight, you're going to open up with a few minutes of comedy.
I shall try. Are we ready?
Am I allowed to heckle you?
You're allowed to heckle me, mate, but you'd beware. I've got an infamous past with hecklers, so... Yeah. All right.
Do you stand up there? Or
I can stand up. Well, that's what we call stand-up comedy for a reason, I suppose, but I don't
Corey,
want to have my back to you. Oh, thank you, everyone. It's lovely to be here. You have to excuse his haircut first and foremost. I'm actually halfway through transitioning into a lower tax bracket, okay? So I had someone come up to me at a gig the other night. She said, you look like Lord Farquaad from Shrek. And I was like, it's not really a compliment, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm from Western Australia, from a place called Bassendean. I'm actually the second most prominent comedian from Bassendean. For those of you who don't know, the first one is Rolf Harris. So I'm an esteemed company. Before I kick off proper, on a serious note, I would like to take the time to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional owners of this land and apologise to them for not getting a better price out of the new Chinese owners of this land. You know, I thought I needed to get out of Western Australia, you know, because we've got this corrupt Labor Premier who's compromised by the Chinese government, so I thought I'd come to Melbourne for something different, and I don't know, it's a strange time to be alive though, guys, isn't it? Trying to make sense of the news in the world these days. Like, I saw this news story the other day, right? The Israeli intelligence service, the Mossad, foiled a gas attack in Germany. I was like, well, fucking better late than never, I guess. Or as QandA would say, better never. But then I saw the Donald announce he was running for president again in 2024. He had that big party out at Mar-a-Lago. And who was in the room? Western Australia's finest, Gina Reinhardt. Right? Because if there's one woman who could sit in a room with the Donald and be completely confident that he wouldn't grab her by the pussy, gosh, that'd be like grabbing a piece of steak, wouldn't it? You know, it's like, oh. A Christian porterhouse, we call it in WA, but that's the appropriate response. But it's a very difficult time to be a comedian in this culture. We live in this culture where people are hypersensitive and addicted to outrage and in love with their own morality, trying to force feed their politically adolescent opinions down your throat. I'm just sick of it. You know, I'm trying to skirt the issue. That's gendered language. I'm trying to stay in my lane. The cyclists get shitty with me, you know. I'm walking on eggshells, then the vegans throw a shit fit, you know, like, just can't win. So I'm going to do what all the morally bankrupt comedians of the Melbourne establishment are doing. I'm going to write children's books, right? Because they've got no morality tale to them. When I was young, a children's book had a morality tale. You know, the short boy can walk tall, or the ugly duckling grows into the beautiful swan. These things, I got nothing. Was it, like, you know, my unicorn farts glitter? Do you know what I mean? Like, scatological humour I have a place for, but not there. You know? So I'm going to get on the cash grab, get on the grifts, and I'm going to write a children's book to educate them about trans issues. I'm going to call it Where's Willie? And I am working on a sequel called Postman Pat, but would you believe I'm having trouble finding a publisher in this climate? Fuck. They're on a lady boycott apparently, but I don't know, is there any Novak Djokovic fans in the room? Yes, I didn't get that sort of response in Brunswick the other night, I have to say. I don't know, I was embarrassed for this country the way we behaved over that. I mean, it was so juvenile and I just couldn't believe it, you know, because the country I grew up in, right, we mindlessly worshipped anyone who was good at sport, regardless of what they did, right? Like Shane Warne, bless his exploded heart, could fuck every nurse in London as a married man. And he was still a national icon, right? Wayne Carey glassed his missus, shagged his best mate's wife, and it took a bag of fake cocaine to get this prick off TV, right? But Novak stood up for the principle of bodily autonomy and the hatred, and particularly from Australian women. And I can understand it from Australian women's perspectives, right? Like, I get it. He's a wealthy man from Eastern Europe with a vicious backhand. And look, I'll be honest, ladies, jokes about domestic violence can be a little bit hit and misses, but you know, you roll with the punchlines, don't you? You know, you see why they didn't let me host the project, by the way? That's Rove McManus's legacy to Australian comedy. Oh my God, that thing's such an abortion, they should call it Roe v. Wade. But he doesn't like me, Rove, but that's another story. But anyway, are you guys footy fans, I assume, being Melbourneites? Yeah, who do you support? Carlton, it's been a fucking long time for you between drinks, hasn't it? Oh yeah. What was that bloke? John Elliott, and then you had the salary cap scandal. Oh yeah, I'm a West Coast fan, obviously. Are you guys women's AFL fans? Liar. No, I like the women's AFL because seriously, from a punter's point of view, how many games of footy can you place a bet on first goal kicker and still be a chance halfway through the third quarter? You know what I mean? So, it's good value for money. My chief grievance a couple of years ago, remember that girl, Taylor Harris, the female footballer? She had that magnificent kicking action and there was that photo taken of her that went viral and all these horrible men on the internet said nasty things. And she called it out, which was very brave and courageous and good on her. And then she got a statue. And then a multi-million-dollar Colgate contract. Like, that I can turn a blind eye to, but a fucking statue? It's like, come on, you are overdoing the culture war here, sisterhood. Because like Nicky Winmar had to wait 30 years for a statue and he arguably endured more intolerance and bigotry than she did. She gets trolled 10 minutes and then pushed to the front of the victims of trolling compensation line. Like, fuck off. And you think of all the great trailblazing women who came before her and aren't memorialised and live in obscurity. You think of the names, Nancy Wake, Joan Coxedge, Edith Cowan, Kathy Freeman. She won gold for Australia in track and field. This girl gets trolled because of a photo of a crack on the field, and it didn't even have the camel toe. Do you know what I mean? Like, and the irony of it, you know, because what's Colgate's main selling point? Cavity protection, you know? Maybe that's why Kathy Freeman never got the gig though, because their other selling point is that they promote whitening. So, don't get angry at me. I don't create the truth, all right? I just have to say it. But I'll tell you what I've learned since I've been in Melbourne is that, look, you can't judge a book by its cover, but you can judge a suburb by its IGA. It's a very good socioeconomic biopsy, isn't it? You know, because where I'm staying, this local IGA, a lot of fancy French cheese, and these trophy wives getting around in their Lululemon. Like I just learned the other day, girls, Lululemon, as it's pronounced over in Toorak, is actually an old Creole word meaning expensive camel toe made with child labour. $200 for a pair of pants to enhance the vagina. What's going on here, girls? Like, I thought you were the superior gender. I saw this girl in the shopping centre. She had the topography of her vagina on full display. I was like, what is this, the flapellations? The Himalabias? India and Pakistan are going to start a war over this. This is Kashmir. Put it away. Like, I came here for a continental roll, not to see a continental shell, for fuck's sake. Straight out of a sweatshop in China to a sweatbox in Cremorne. Thank you very much. I just don't feel safe anymore. And I don't know. What else has been going on? Has anyone not had the vaccine? Yes, we're a minority group now. We're entitled to reorganise society in our own image. I don't know. It's like, you know, we can talk about this now, but look, I hope unvaccinated sperm is the next big coin, because I'll be honest. I've got no super, and I am ready to make a deposit into some hot wallets, let me tell you. And look, it's not proven, right? And I hope it's not true, but if unvaccinated sperm is the next Bitcoin, I'm not going to rub it in anyone's face. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't raised to throw money away hand over fist. Do you know what I mean? Gosh, and I don't know what I'd call it, because all the good names like cum rocket's taken, Clickcoin's a bit basic, so I'm going to call my unvaccinated sperm Pride. You know why? Because it's fucking hard to swallow. So I'm told. I had to pay Stormy Daniels to shut up about that, but anyway, that's another story. But I don't know, it's a difficult time, like dating in this Me Too era as a bloke, it's very difficult. Like I went on a date with this girl the other night and I bought her a drink and I came back to the table and she said all the very accusatory, "You didn't spike that, did you?" And I was shocked. I was like, I hate to be the one to break this to you, but there is fucking no chance that I would waste a Schedule 8 pharmaceutical on you, all right? Like, don't flatter yourself. If anyone's getting Bill Cosby'd here, it's me, all right? Fucking best you can hope for is a Julian Assange, and I don't do bareback, so seen a lot of good incomes ruined by child support, I have to say. Has anyone got kids? Yeah. How many of you regret it? That's the spirit. All that disposable income and free time you've lost, you poor guy. But I don't know. It's, what's happened to the gay community? That was a strange segue, Corey, wasn't it? I don't know, like, because you know, I got lots of. I've grown up in the arts, you know, and the law. The law's a bit of a gay mafia, but you know, like I'm not homophobic, but I am homo fatigued. You know, this queer saturation, everything's got to be queer, you know, like, you know, marching the streets with your flag. Like, I'm unvaccinated, right? I'm a small minority of the population. But you know what I'm not doing? Is marching down the street with my friends in arseless chaps, waving a flag, demanding everyone pledge to be our ally. And it's a little bit 1940 Germany for me, you know? So I guess what I'm saying is I just really hate flags. So anyway, did anyone watch that Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial? Yeah, because at first I was like, oh, who cares about this toxic? I wanted to watch the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Why wasn't that televised? But then as a recovering criminal lawyer who's got an issue with women, I was like, oh my God, this is fucking amazing content. I don't know, what do you reckon, ladies? Was she telling the truth? Nah, see, for me, this whole notion of believe all women should have never made it past Chappelle Corby. Do you know what I mean? Like, the idea that women are immune to human frailty is fucking insulting, right? But it annoyed me because what Amber Heard did, right, is she's fueled the perception that women make up stories. And it makes it harder for the next woman to come forward who's got a legitimate story to tell. And I've seen and I've lived the destruction that does to someone's psyche when they're not believed, right? That's the shadow of my own life. And I've got nieces and nephews, and I want them to grow up in a world where, heaven forbid, if something happens, they have the courage and the confidence to come forward and be believed when they say, Uncle Corey molested me. Well, how else am I supposed to become the most prominent comedian from Bassendean? Do you know what I mean? Look, I only wrote that joke to get myself out of babysitting, and you're welcome to it any time. Fucking work's a treat, let me tell you. But I don't know, it's one of the things I believe most passionately in is the power of art and the power of humour. And I've got a quick story I'd like to tell. I was in Perth for the Fringe Festival a few weeks ago, and I was catching a bus into the city because I'm a socially conscious man who wants to minimise my carbon footprint, and regardless of what you think about climate change, I'm just trying to save money. Anyway, tag on the bus. As soon as I tagged on the bus, this Indian driver started hassling this Aboriginal guy in the front seat about exceeding his fare zone. I thought, fuck, you've assimilated quickly, mate. And old mate didn't have enough change in his pocket. I did, covered it, white saviour, right? What a fucking hero. Sit down, get talking to this bloke. I was like, mate, what's your story? Where you from? He's like, oh, I'm just down here from Geraldton. And I was like, oh, you're a Yamaji man. And his eyes lit up, and I could see his whole body language change, and it was ticking over in his head like, fuck, this white fella knows the name of my people. He knows where I'm from. And he opened up to me, and he said, mate, I'm actually just down here saying goodbye to my mum, she's dying. And I was like, oh God, mate, I've been through that recently myself, and my condolences. And we had this really therapeutic conversation on the bus. And he asked me what I did. And I told him I'm a comedian. And as so often happens in this job, he said, mate, can I tell you a joke? And I said, yeah, sure. And he goes, you know why us blackfellas don't buy Coon cheese, right? I was like, obviously because of the name. He goes, nah, mate, nothing to do with the name. It's just that my people, we're lactose intolerant. I was like, oh. Fuck, don't worry about your land, mate. I don't want to steal your jokes, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, get off the bus at the same spot. I had time to kill before the next show, and I was like, mate, I'm really enjoying this conversation. Do you want to go into this bar here, have a beer on me? He's like, yeah, no worries. So we walked into this swanky shithole fucking full of corporate lawyers and stockbrokers and their R.M. Williams, just unmitigated fuckheads. And walked in, and as soon as he walked in, I could sense the staring, right? And, I was just like, I wanted to help him fit in, but I didn't have a bag of cocaine I could send him into the toilet with. So bought us a couple of beers and sat down, and I could just sense the staring. And I asked him, I was like, mate, how do you feel about this? And he's just like, well, to be honest, Corey, it's not every day a white fella buys me a beer in this part of town. But, I've been dealing with this my whole life. People think I steal everywhere I go. And I could just sense the staring from this table of stockbrokers and the laughter. And I knew they were having a joke at my expense, and his expense more pertinently. And I said, do you mind if I say something about this? He said, no worries. So I put my beer down and I said, what the fuck are you looking at, you white dog cunts? And I got kicked out, right? And old mate came out for a solidarity cigarette, and he goes, Corey, that was so funny. And then he pocketed my lighter. I was like, mate, did you just steal my lighter? He's like, yeah, but didn't you cunt steal my land? And I was like, wow, you got me there. But it's a very divisive time, and Australia Day is a divisive issue. And, we need to reinvigorate our national identity. If there's a country which stopped emulating, it's America. I hate the Americanisation of this country. Sorry, Peter. It's just disgusting. Everywhere you go, the politics, to the journalism, to the culture, to the food. Like, there's Taco Bell in town. There's Costco here. Like, just stop it. It's yuck. Okay? We need to change things. We need to reinvigorate our national identity, make it more inclusive and cognizant of our past. And in order to do that, I propose that we move Australia Day to Halloween. Right? Because that way, Indigenous kids can knock on your door and be like, hey, trick or treaty. And, well, look, I don't think you gave that joke what it deserves, to be honest. I took the rest of the day off after I wrote that. I put my fucking feet up on some stolen land, you know what I mean? But anyway, that's enough for me. We're going to crack on with the show. Thank you so much, guys, and I hope you enjoy.
That's insane. There's so few comedians remain.
Yes, well, you realise how much it's dying when you see someone who can do it properly, So, but like we'll talk about later, we're being screened out. People who have a socio-political bent or the wrong ideas are being purged from the institutions. And it's light and day when you see someone like me and someone who's subsidised and propped up by the Melbourne comedy establishment. So I'm here to storm the cultural capital for the festival, and you're welcome to my show.
Yes. What a coup that you're in the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. So if people want to see you, they can go to Jolly?
Yeah, I've got a show called The Jolly Gag Man. I wanted to have a different name, but they rejected it. It was going to be called LGBTQAnon. And the festival rejected it on the grounds that it had fascist undertones. So there you go. From the fascists in drag, they accused me of fascism. But anyway.
All right. Thank you for being. We could do that all night. Peter, we have some serious work. Is that a plum?
I bring it everywhere with me.
Is it a real plum?
Yeah, it is. It really is. I can't remember where it was. I saw it and I'm like, wow, that looks pretty good. I might as well take it. So I took it with me, and I'm waiting to be hungry to eat it. But every time I'm here, people keep feeding me and sticking drinks in my hand, so I haven't had a chance to eat it yet.
All right, Peter, we have some serious business to do.
I just thought that now everybody has that completely worthless piece of information in their heads. Okay, go ahead.
We have some serious business to do. Look at this game on the floor. We attempted to play it at our last round. I think we did it okay. But as the man who invented it, did you invent it or did Reed invent it? What's the deal here?
In my first book, there was street epistemology. I invented that. And Reed, so everybody, that's Reed over there. Raise your hands. Reed is awesome. We go all around the world together. Reed had the truly genius idea to do spectrum street epistemology on a spectrum. So you can actually physically see the changes in belief by movement upon a line.
Yeah, okay. Well, co-founder of Street Epistemology. How do we play this game? So I've told people to go to this QR code. Okay,
so let's talk about this. So that was a really very funny and hard act to follow. So I don't know how funny this is, but it's an amazing tool to help people calibrate their beliefs to what reasons and evidence they have. So here's how you play. And I'm going to make a prediction. How you play is, one of the rules is always violated no matter where I go. But you stand on the neutral line. Everybody starts on the neutral line. And then I'll explain what's behind you and everybody came in when they voted. And then I'll count down, so about 3 people, and it looks like they can fit maybe 4. I'll count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move, and you move. And my first prediction is people will move before I say move. The reason that you don't want to do that is because we know, studies have shown that we know that people we don't want anybody to be influenced. So we want everybody to make their decisions independently. The second thing is you can move anytime you want to any line you want. Strongly agree, slightly agree, neutral, slightly disagree, strongly disagree. However, and this is the kick, you have to move a full line. One foot to the left, 1 foot to the right. So you can't do anything weird like this or this. Or if someone says something that you can't do, you have to commit to a full line. So those are the only 2 rules of the game. You can move around as much as you want. So while you came in, we were putting questions on the board for what we want to talk about. Oh, and before I say that, so we're probably going to do 2, 3, maybe 4 games. And then, this is the kicker, I am going to hand the mic over to you, someone in here, and you're going to do this first with us, and then maybe with people in the audience if you want to volunteer. So by the time you leave here, among our goals are, you will know how to do this, and you can apply this at anything. I had to talk to a guy the other night, Reed and I were, he said he puts these lines up, and he has his kids go on a line when they fight each other. Wow, that's pretty, I never thought of that. That's pretty cool. So hopefully when you get out of here, it will not just be engaging and fun, but it will be very, very practical.
So Peter, can I ask, what is the point of this game? Why is this so important for the world to learn it? What is it doing to our brains?
Well, one of the things that we've all seen is the ideological capture of institutions. We've seen people dig down in positions. We've seen people not speak across divides. This will teach you a few things. The first thing it will teach you is how to have conversations with people with whom you fundamentally disagree. Now, that doesn't always work because it could be possible that we do a game and everybody stands on the disagree. But ideally people, the best games, and don't come up and try to game the system, just stand where you believe. The best games are when someone's on strongly agree, someone's on neutral, and someone's on strongly disagree. So it teaches you how to speak across divides. The second reason this is so important is because it's really important in everybody's life that you correlate the evidence that you have for a position or the reason you have to believe with the strength of your belief. The moment those are out of whack, it's a kind of self-harm. It's a kind of cognitive self-harm. So the idea, one of the things that we want to do is to help people do this, to help people align, to recalibrate their confidence. And the cool thing about this game is you don't have to be physically online. You can just be at a meeting, whatever, and spacing out, and you can just run through the exercise in your head. So the highest form of this when you leave is self-imposition. It's imposing this structure or this process of thinking on yourself once you leave here. But you can't do that until you have the tools to see how it's run, and that's why someone in the audience is going to run a few of these games with us. And the reason the reason that's so important is that you should never ask somebody a question unless you're willing to have that question answered to you. You should never engage someone in a practice unless you're willing to take. So don't dish it out unless you can take it. So I'm going to dish it out and then I'm going to take it, right? So that's what we're all going to do.
Amazing. So how do we start?
Okay. So, and Reed, jump in here at any time. So we voted when we came in about claims. So I hope folks can see those in the back. So we asked, what categories would people like to discuss? Woke theory got 11 votes, woke identity, Australian politics got 8, extraordinary claims got 8. It's interesting, that's usually our most, you know what our most common thing to talk about is? I'm trying to say this again, but this is not a joke, aliens. People love to talk about aliens because of all the recent phenomenon. Conspiracies, COVID, and ethics. So ethics got the majority of these, so we'll probably do the majority of these in ethics.
I love you guys, well done.
We may do woke
Ethics.
Identity or woke theory. So ethics is the main one. All right, read next. Huh?
A fun one.
Oh yeah, this is just for fun. Oh yeah, the word woman should mean, so this will tell you about the audience of the people who come in. These are kind of ways to figure out the leanings of the audience. And I'll just throw out this idea that the access that's now important that we see emerge in our culture is not right-left, it's not conservative-liberal, although liberal means something here different. It's not conservative, it's not Republican-Democrat. It's authoritarian, anti-authoritarian. That's the access in which, and that's why to understand that, once that is grokked, fully understood, you understand why people at various sides of the culture war who were previously enemies are now allied. Because we have one side for cognitive liberty, and we have another side who wants to tell you exactly what to think. Even though I happen to share many of the things that they believe, cognitive liberty is what this battle is about. So this is a good marker for some of those things. So the word woke should mean, the number one vote was a worldview that sees society in terms of systems of power, privilege, dominance, oppression, and marginalization. That's the first one. Second one is having a critical consciousness. Third is awareness of and empathy for people who suffer from injustice and oppression. So we don't have many woke people in here. Fourth is something else. And fifth is a high level of socio-political awareness through which a person understands their positionality in the world. That's postmodern bullshit. So it's a kind of a rough gauge. And it also helps me, those questions when we come in, to kind of anticipate where people will stand on the lines. Okay, so the next one. What extraordinary claims, and again, this is all by straight vote. And we really didn't jerry-rig it or toy with it at all. What extraordinary claims would you like to discuss? Everybody worships a god of some sort. That was the number one. Highly advanced civilizations exist in the ancient world. A god exists. Aliens are currently visiting Earth. For some reason, that was not that popular tonight. Everyone's personality was influenced by the location of celestial objects when they were born. Astrology. We're living in a simulation. Nobody wants to talk about living in a simulation. All right. So, are we going to start with that, Reed?
That's a good one.
All right, let's start with that. And so, everybody worships some sort of god. That's our number one vote, so let's start with that. Okay, so here's how it's going to go. Again, I'm going to do the first ones, While I do these, I'm going to explain how I do them. So when I physically hand the mic over, you'll get the idea of how to do these too. Okay, so and I want to say one more thing. So while I do this, so we're always changing, improving, tweaking. We're always making, like the Miro board, or the, what's that board called again when they came in?
Minty.
Yeah, the Minty board. So one of the things that Reed is going to do tonight is, while the claims come up, he's going to write the claims down so you can see them. So he's going to write reasons for people's beliefs and claims. At any point, if we forget the claim, you can look at the board, and he'll trace the reasoning process that people use. And so one of the things that I'll do is I'll look at that, and sometimes we cheat a little bit, so Reed will feed me questions if there's something that I haven't thought of. Okay. So you can see the counter and the reason, and sometimes we'll reset to the reason. It'll become crystal. It's actually astonishingly easy to do this, and we'll demonstrate it. Okay, so everybody worships a god of some sort. 3 volunteers. One at a time, please. One time. 1, 2, 3. Come on up. Yay! Give him a hand. Okay. So everybody stands on the neutral. Yeah, and we go by height, only because of the...
That's all.
Yeah, that's okay, that's all right, then you're there. Okay, so everybody got the rules of the game. You can move anytime you want. You got to commit to a line. Don't move until I say move. Everybody worships a god of some sort. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Oh, wow, okay, this is good. And did you notice this is a smart group, because they moved when I said move? That's really good. It's just really astonishing. You would be amazed at how many people do not follow the simplest of instructions. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, this is actually among the best of possible distributions. Okay, the first thing I do is I ask people what they believe or what they mean by terms.
Sure. So
I can do it. Good. Yeah. So what do you mean by a god?
So just any belief that's external to you.
Tell them, yeah.
So any belief that's external to you, that you think is, informing either your sense of right or wrong, or your meaning, anything like that.
So it has a moral component. So it's not like, pizza should not have pepperoni or pineapple. It's a moral component.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. What do you mean by God?
I would think of a supernatural being.
Okay, so the way you interpret this is everybody worships a god of some sort, and you think about that as a supernatural claim.
Look, I suppose the thing is that we use the word religion and God sometimes.
Tell them.
Sorry, we use the word God and religion sometimes intermingly.
Right.
So in some situations we're seeing in society now people having a worship or a religion, but it's not a godly one. So that's why I'm a little bit unsure.
Okay, all right, fair enough. You strongly agree with this. Why do you strongly agree?
Because I think when people get closer to the end of life, they always think that there's something other.
So you interpret this in a traditional religious, like man in the sky kind of
Something other.
Something other, like a higher power.
Yes.
Okay. Do you agree with that definition?
That's probably enough for me, but there could be something more than just a higher power, or it could be just something external. Might not even be, it could be like just the laws of the universe you could consider a god, right?
Okay, so the first thing that we did here, and remember, people are going to have to do this tonight. The first thing we did is, now everybody knows exactly what we're talking about. Only now can we move forward. Unless I did that, there'd be no point in moving forward, because it would be like two ships passing in the night. What he could be talking about would be something totally different than him. So we're not really answering the question. So, does everybody, yes, we're cool? Okay, so first thing is you define the terms. So you strongly agree. So so now I repeat back to make sure that I understand. And what I'm really doing is repeating back not so that I understand, but so that he, not him, but he in particular understands. So not that he's mentally malformed, but that he's on the other line. Okay, so let me make sure I understand this correctly. Not, explain yourself. I put the burden of understanding on myself. Okay, so at the end of life, people are close to, like if someone's dying of cancer or something horrible like that. Okay, so what percentage of people do you think have a belief in a higher power at the end of their life? Would it be like
100.
100? You mean every single person? Like,
I think so. I think so. When people get closer to death, unless people want to die, which is no, okay, so maybe that's an exception. Unless people want to die, I think people who want to live, so dying of illness or something, I think they want to live, and hence they want to believe that there'll be something after.
okay. So now I immediately go for a disconfirmation question. Okay, let's say that I showed you a video of people about to go into hospital. I don't have this video, but let's say that I had a video. I went around, do you call it hospice here on your island? Like, yeah, okay. Let's say, so let's say I show you a video of 100 people, and I have 4 of those people that say, no, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in a high power, it's all bullshit. Would you be willing to move to the agree line?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you find a condition under which someone be willing to change their mind. Now we have the condition. I'm not saying I have the evidence, but I now understand what it would take to change the mind. Now I'm going to try to play these two off of each other, with my goal being to get each one to move one line. What I'm going to do with him, I have no idea. Okay. So what would it take you to, well, first of all, tell us what you mean by everybody worships some sort of higher power, because all that explanation, I think we might have lost something in that.
Actually, I should say it's a thrill to be up here, first thing. So, but for me, it was just the everybody worships, not so much the power, like, because it just needs one person to negate that, right? So you need everyone on earth. So as soon as one person doesn't either believe or just doesn't worship, like you could believe there's a God and just give 2 shits about it, right?
Oh, that's interesting. So you mean if we, instead of everybody worships a higher power, if that was written, the vast majority of people worship a higher power, you would be on the disagree?
I'd probably go to strongly agree.
Okay, Reed, let's reset. Go back to the neutral. Everybody go back to the neutral. Back to the neutral. Back to the, you two.
Okay.
The vast majority of people worship a higher power of some sort. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Do you see what happens when you clarify? Most, certainly not all. I mean, I'm going to take back the most. Many disagreements, maybe not the majority, but many disagreements are simply over the meanings of words and how things are understood and interpreted. Okay, cool. So we could do any one of a number of things tonight, but I think that we drilled home in this one exercise something to think about how to clarify terms before the conversation moves. Okay, good. Give everybody a hand. Give them a hand. Okay, let's do another one. Are we going to do number 2, Reed? I think ethics got 22 votes. It got the most votes, so I would like to do an ethics claim. Okay, so I do want to stress too, there's nothing, these claims are purely fungible. There's absolutely nothing unique or special about their claims. It's the process. It's all the process. The claims are irrelevant. Okay. Affirmative action is wrong. Abortion in the second trimester should be legal for any reason. You know, maybe one of the things that I should do is we should leave the number 1s for people who want to do it themselves. So let's do that. So let's come back to the affirmative action is wrong. Or no, what do you think, Reed? Reed is like my brain. Let's do this one, and we'll leave this one for the moment. Let's do abortion in the second trimester should be legal for any reason. Okay, I need 3 people. 1, 2, 3. All right, come on down. Stand in the neutral, give him a hand. Stand in the neutral, good, and you two swap. Yep, this is a height privilege here. Okay, so I'm going to change this one, so you need to really pay attention. Abortion in the first trimester should be legal for any reason. Abortion in the first trimester should be legal for any reason.
What is the weeks of the second trimester?
3 months, 3 months, 3 months. First trimester is 3 months.
0 to 12 weeks would be the first trimester? No, so the second trimester is
The second trimester is the second 3 months.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Abortion in the first trimester should be legal for any reason. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Okay. Strongly agree, slightly disagree. Tell her why you disagree. Yeah.
Well, any reason's quite open, so it could be for all sorts of things. So it could be, for example, someone aborting children because of the wrong gender or something in certain patriarchal societies, or because they've got a disability or something. So there has to be some sort of process, not just I feel like it, I'm going to have an abortion. There has to be some sort of process. There has to be, ultimately someone should have free choice, but there should be a process.
Okay, so based upon that, why aren't you on the slightly disagree?
Because you've phrased it in such a way that any reason, right? Any reason could be someone being coerced. It could be because someone was drugged, right? They had an abortion, right? It could be, so the amount that's so broad in terms of the reasons that you're giving.
Okay, got it. Why do you strongly agree that abortion in the first trimester should be legal?
Well, there's so many different circumstances, and even it's just a very the first trimester. Like sometimes you could be like 8-9 weeks pregnant and not even know. And
Okay, all right, got it. Yeah.
then to get an appointment or whatever could be another 3 weeks. Like there's a lot of things to consider.
Okay.
First,
So why you slightly disagree?
So I had the same issue as this gentleman here, where I was sort of tossing up back and forth between slightly disagree and disagree, because obviously any reason and particular reasons. So I just ended up here. I thought it was the most appropriate.
Okay. All right, let's go reset to the neutral. Everybody go back to the neutral. All right, Reed, we're going to change the first to the second. So you can see Reed's reasoning there, but abortion in the second trimester should be legal for any reason, the second trimester. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Holy moly, I am surprised by that. Okay, to put your other, yes, no cheating, no cheating.
Sorry.
Well, it's okay. Why did you change so radically?
because the time of the pregnancy.
What does that have to do with anything?
Well, I guess it's developing a lot more, and it's not like people wouldn't realise that they're pregnant by second trimester.
Okay, so for you, it's a real
I had
realization.
She's had an abortion at 20 weeks, and she tried to claim that she didn't know. But there's, you would know by 20.
By 20 weeks, okay. You moved one. Why?
In the second trimester, there's more issues in terms of, does the baby feel pain? Other types of more ethical issues rise up.
So you're worried about the pain of the fetus.
So there's potential issues, I think, around like 16 weeks where I think that's debates around, around whether the fetus can actually feel pain. And so if you're going to kill something that feels pain, I think it's much more of a dilemma.
Interesting. So you use the word kill, so you think it's alive.
I think it's alive probably throughout the entire thing, but I think there's different ethical issues throughout the entire process.
So you rated something with the mother. You must have rated it. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I misunderstood. I'm inferring this from what you said. Yeah. You must have rated the life of the mother or the rights of the mother more highly in the first question than you do in the latter question due to the development of the fetus. Is that right?
Yes and no. So not necessarily always higher, but it's more when it says any reason. So if there's particular reasons earlier on, so I call my position pro-circumstance, which is basically you tell me the situation and I'll tell you whether or not you have a right to kill something that's a baby or fetus.
Okay, and you did not move, is that correct?
Well, I mean, the logic doesn't really matter at which point, right? Whether you're doing it, the effect on the people involved. You're doing it for a frivolous reason, and that's going to come and bite you if you're a parent. Or there's all sorts of, it's about having safeguards, right? So if there's good reasons at the second trimester and there's safeguards in place, or even the third trimester, right, you could find a case where, for example, the baby's going to injure the mother, right? There was a horrific case in Ireland where they were literally keeping someone on a ventilator just because of their some sort of rule. So you have, I think the balancing exercise is the same, regardless of what point, right?
Okay.
If there's a good set of reasons for doing it, then...
So you've convinced me, everybody reset. And you can look at Reed's, you can look at Reed's commentary. Does everybody know what question I'm going to ask? Abortion in the, Reed knows, abortion in the third trimester should be legal for any reason. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Wow, reset, please. Abortion up to the last day should be legal for any reason. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. He wanted to sprint to that slide. Yeah, talk to us.
Well, you've got a shorter period of time, right, to decide, right? Either you're making the baby or you're not, right? So at that point, the implications are quite different, right? So therefore, the time you have to decide would mean that the legal process, might have to be cut short, right? So you've got, the baby's coming tomorrow, and there might be compelling reasons to get rid of it today, right? And once the baby's born in our society, you can't get rid of it because of murder, right? So
so you want to murder it beforehand?
Well, I mean, I'm saying that there may be compelling reasons at that point, in that particular point in time, right? That's the final decision point, right? So there's different reasons at that point. I mean, I might argue for 4th or 5th trimester abortions to be made available in certain sectors if the baby screams too much, but that's.
Okay, just.
But that's not a law today.
Okay, I'm just super curious about something. Say reset to the neutral. So one of the things when you do this, if you have an idea, never be afraid that people are like, "Ooh, that's terrible." Just do the idea. Mothers have a right to kill the baby after it's born within 24 hours. 5, 4, 3. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Okay. It doesn't happen often, but I am stumped. Okay, please.
Well, at this point, you're actually in a position where you're making more informed decisions. There doesn't seem to be a rational. There doesn't seem to be rational. I mean, so actually, not just one, maybe longer than 24 hours, but certainly, the decision-making process should be, and once you know what it looks like, right, and once you know know how much it screams, I think you've got actually a better position to know, aren't you?
So you're in a more. Even saying this is making me laugh. So okay, when you do this, you have to try to not give away your position, but it's very hard right now. So you mean to tell me that because the baby is born and you can look at it, you are able to make a more informed decision, whereas when you can't look at it, the decision isn't informed, and for you, the fulcrum of this hinges upon.
What about so? Like loads of parents, right? They get the baby and they love the baby, right? But if they have an abortion earlier, right? They've not had the opportunity to love the baby. So if you move that time back, then they've got actually a chance to make an informed decision. And there's no logical distinction between a baby just because it's come out and a baby that's still screaming, right? It's not gone any further in its development apart from it's out. There's no real conceptual distinction there.
Okay, all right. You ask him anything you want.
Yeah. How far along into the life? So 2 days, 2 years. Where's the limit?
Well, after 10 years.
10 years.
I mean, I think if it's a balancing exercise, it should be fact-specific, right? So it depends on the fact, right? Let's say you had a baby and you're in a coma for 3 months. Should you be deprived of that right because you had the baby and you're in a coma for 3 months? It depends, right? It depends on the circumstances. I wouldn't say that you should be able to just do it unilaterally, but...
I have another question. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Just ask him. He wants to be asked.
When is your mother allowed to kill you?
Is there an end date, like at 27, 37?
Well, I mean, it's definitely, but this way, it's not below 30, it's above 30. I'm 34 tomorrow, so I'm not lying about it.
So 32.
So I'll say, 33 is my...
Okay, so she could still come in here right now with a chainsaw.
Well,
okay.
She has to fly all the way over from the UK, so actually she can't.
God, wouldn't it be awesome if we had like a reveal where his mom comes in? Okay, so why do you strongly... I can't believe I'm asking why someone strongly disagrees that they shouldn't kill a newborn baby, but I'm going to ask you anyway because often we need to articulate things that we think are obvious. Perhaps they even are obvious, but why should mothers not be able to kill a newborn baby?
Because it's alive and it's born and stuff. Like I'm more not like, I don't know, it just seems obvious to me, but I'm more thinking of like the day before and you're still pregnant. Just say like you're heavily pregnant, but then you had a car accident and then like whatever circumstances, like the doctor said, your baby, we're going to have to like induce it or in a way kind of, an abortion so that you live, And
okay, so there could be some like circumstance.
Yeah, like 24 hours before you've actually given birth, there could be all sorts of different things. But then once it's born, like it's out and you think it's hopefully safe, you can't kill it unless it's like an accident or whatever.
So you do think that, if I remember correctly, you stood on this line for the 1 day beforehand?
No, there.
Oh, you stood on the disagree. Okay. Is there anything that would change your mind or make you move to the disagree for whether or not it's acceptable to kill a newborn baby?
No.
Is there anything that would change your mind?
Maybe it was like Satan or something.
So, okay. Okay, so if you had evidence, I mean, I guess that's another game in and of itself, but what evidence would you need that it was possessed by a demon? I mean, what would that evidence look like?
I have no
if it
idea.
just starts speaking in tongues?
More of a joke.
Oh, okay. Okay, it was funny. It's funny. You got me. So what evidence would it take for you? What reason would you have to hear to move to the slightly agree?
Well, I mean, I think it depends on people's attitudes in the whole process, right? If we understand people's attitudes to that process, if there are good reasons. So really, it's about the wider social issues, right? So it's about whether someone can make a better decision at a given point in time. So if we had someone, obviously we don't have the evidence yet because of course this isn't a law that's in place, right? So until we try this new policy, then we can't really.
Do you vote?
I'm not allowed to yet in Australia, but...
Okay, good. All right, give everybody a hand. Give them a hand. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, good. Okay, so I just want to take a pause and hey, Reed, can we go back to that? Read that last slide. Yeah. So the baby is alive. So a mother should have a right to kill a baby when it's born. When people do this, you can just reset at any time. I always reset. I don't have any magical criterion, but it's just like, oh, that's kind of interesting. They said something interesting. Is that a good reason to believe? Recently, I've been doing this. This is Reed's innovation. I've been doing this where we reset to a woke reason. So if it's whatever reason someone gives that's woke, the question, we reset them and we ask, is this a good reason to believe X? Trans women or the trans thing is very hot right now. Okay, so you can always look back at these. I love the Rosemary's Baby Read thing. That was great. Okay, people can be healthy at any size. Everyone's gender should be affirmed. Trans women are really women. Are we going to save? Did we decide to save the top one for the guests? Is that what we're going to do? Okay, let's save the top one for someone. Let's do everybody's gender should be affirmed. How's that? Is that okay? All right. So I need 3 people. This is the last one I'm going to do, depending on time. Everyone's gender should be affirmed. I need 3 people. 1, 2, 3. Switch languages on everybody. All right. Come on up. And you, sir, in the back. Okay, so before we begin, thank you for volunteering. Before we begin, let's talk about what do you mean by gender affirmed?
I guess confirming somebody's identity with how they view their own gender.
Okay, so if somebody, not to be vulgar or crude, but if someone is born with a penis and they say, I'm trapped in the wrong, just as a more simplification, but I'm trapped in the wrong body, I really should have had a vagina, and I need somebody to affirm my gender. In other words, I need someone to tell me that's right, don't worry about it, the system is here to help you.
Well, it's nuanced, isn't it? Depends, how old are they? Are they an adult? Or are they a child?
We're going to have to break it down. Okay, so now we learn that we break it down. Okay, so let's just run with it right now, and we'll talk about affirm, and then we can do multiple iterations. Everybody's gender should be affirmed. What do you mean by affirming someone's gender?
Encouraging them, their identity, what they think that they want to be, saying yes, that's cool, and just going along with it.
But by going along with it, you mean what you mean, like socially go along with it, medically go along with it, institutionally go along with it? What do you mean by going along with it?
Socially, probably, because like if someone says that to you, just respecting it and just doing what they ask.
Okay, respecting it or giving it a show of respect? Which one?
Giving it a show of respect.
Okay. All right, fair enough. A non-trivial distinction. Okay, what do you mean by affirming someone's gender, sir?
Well, affirming usually means that you not only just accept it, but you agree with it. And so I think that would be saying that I am going to acquiesce what I, for example, believe to be true and accept what you say because you believe that.
Right, okay, so can we agree, and if the answer is no, tell me, that we got gender affirmation means encourage people in their gender identity, or does it mean respect and agree with their gender identity? Which of those does it mean? You can look, turn around and look. Does it mean encouraging people in their gender identity, or does it mean respecting and agreeing with their gender identity? Or something else? We synthesized from what the answers were.
I think encouraging.
Encouraging?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, what do you think?
Oh, I don't know now. No,
It's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, I think my view of what
Neutral.
the current view of what affirmation is, I believe it's the second. We got to respect and we have to agree.
Okay, sir?
Yeah, but I think the agree kind of goes along with the encouraging, right? So if you agree with something, then you encourage that point of view.
So they're related.
It's sort of collapsed into the second one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, did anybody's mind change after that clarification, or you still think the same things?
Same thing.
Same thing? Okay, cool. Everybody's gender, everyone's means everyone's. Okay. Everyone's gender should be affirmed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Ooh, okay. Why do you strongly disagree?
Because I don't think 3-year-olds have the ability to choose their gender.
Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Do I agree that children shouldn't be allowed to choose their
Well,
gender? Or that right?
3 years old, at 3.
Well, I don't think anybody should. So.
Okay. Well, then you agree with the 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody go back to the neutral. Let's go back to the neutral. So Reed wrote, prepubescent children do not have the ability to choose their gender. So now we want to fine tune it. We want to just see where the fault line is in the belief, okay? 15-year-olds' gender should be affirmed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Okay. Okay, so we now see, at least for one participant, age is a feature, right? So we now know when this is going to help us figure out what subsequent questions to ask. Okay, let's go on the neutral again, please. Let's reset the line. 18 and above year olds' gender should be affirmed. 18 and above. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Okay. This is interesting. Okay, tell them why you slightly agree.
Sorry.
Are you on the wrong line?
Yeah, sorry, because I forgot affirm should be we also encourage it.
Okay, you can move at any time. Okay, tell them why you're neutral. Why, and what does it mean to be neutral to you? What does that mean?
It's case by case basis. I don't think that firstly, I think if you're over 18 and you're an adult and you have the ability to make that decision for yourself, that's entirely up to you. I'm not going to stop an adult from doing something to themselves.
Yeah, and you couldn't even if you wanted to.
No, you couldn't.
Right.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't.
Is a practical concern as well. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't station a police officer in everybody's home making sure they don't mutilate themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Why do you disagree?
I think even people of any age can be confused or need guidance, and just because they want to do that doesn't mean that I have to affirm it.
Can somebody be wrong about what gender or the sex can someone be wrong about the okay, this is 3. Can someone be wrong about their opinion that they're born in the wrong body?
No, I think your opinion is just your opinion. Like, you can have any opinion.
What about people who detransition?
No, I think opinions can change. I think opinions change all the time. You can believe something one day and then have something change your mind, and you can go straight back.
Okay, so I asked the question to see if I could nudge her to the slightly disagree. Now I'm going to try to, what's going to come, right? So when someone is on the extreme line, there's only one place I can try to nudge them, right? There's no other option. So tell us why you strongly disagree that people who are over 18 should have their gender affirmed.
Well, the truth matters. And
Okay.
so they can believe whatever they want. They just can't ask me or expect me to believe in something that isn't true.
So what if they wanted to undergo an operation like a bottom surgery?
You can't make a man out of a woman or a woman out of a man. You just can't.
Okay, if they wanted to do that and it didn't affect you in terms of your taxes, would you care?
I don't care if they do that, and they can call themselves a cucumber for all I care. But I don't, I don't have to believe they're a vegetable, right?
Right. So your position, let me make sure I understand this correctly. You don't care that they do it. Your issue with it is
it doesn't infringe on me in some way.
Okay.
Right.
So it's for you. If it doesn't infringe upon you, would you be willing to do the disagree? Like if, for example,
No, because I won't affirm it. There's still something called the truth, and I won't go along with that. But there's lots of people who think silly things, and they're perfectly capable of doing that. Just don't expect me, or sort of force me to go along with that.
Okay. What is the best reason or argument that you have that you could give them to move, not all the way, just one single line to their left? What's the best thing, reason, or piece of evidence you think you could tell them that a reasonable person would look at and move one line?
Well, gender dysphoria is a real condition. Very rare, not as prominent as we're seeing at the moment, but to have a genuine gender dysphoria where you actually believe that you are living in the wrong body and you decide to live a different life where it's not going to hurt anyone else and you're an adult. I think in the rare, genuine occasions of gender dysphoria, I think, for me, which is why I'm on neutral, that's why people who are 18 and above, we need to change the question. Can, you know, some people 18 and above can have their gender affirmed, because I genuinely believe that there are some people out there that have genuine
Gender dysphoria.
gender dysphoria, you know, but it's like, you know, what we're seeing today with the gender dysphoria.
Is a contagion.
It is a contagion in a way, you know, and look, I mean, I grew up in the 90s with anorexia. We all had body dysmorphia. We all thought, you know, we were fat at 15, you know, 12, you know, with Kate Moss. That's like giving 12-year-olds liposuction. You know, that was like giving us liposuction, because that in our head, we were looking at the magazines and we wanted to be as skinny as Kate Moss. We wanted to be this, we wanted to be that. We all thought we were fat, because that was the style. It was heroin chic. And imagine if we had said to her, Mommy, I'm so fat, give me the liposuction, give me the liposuction. And that's what we're seeing.
And you
Well,
think
I
the parallel today is with trans?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
And it's, you know, it's, as Bill Maher said, you know, it could be a new form of teenage rebellion, like, oh, only boys have penises. Okay, boomer, you know,
Right.
that's, yeah.
Okay. Did anything she say convince you to move to slightly disagree?
It convinced me, but I don't think I'd do it.
You don't think you'd move, wouldn't take the plunge to move one line?
Probably not, no.
And what is, that's interesting. So if it convinced you, why wouldn't you move?
Because that's not the majority, because that's the minority, and most people, they're not quite right. So I think I'm still in the majority if I say disagree.
Did anything she say convince you to move one line?
No, but she did make my point even stronger, I thought.
Oh, well, unfortunately, we don't have another line to the right of yours. But okay, so everybody reset to the neutral. This is where we can use this. Gender dysphoria is real. I'm not going to give you a percentage. All we need to make this claim true is one person. That's it. Gender dysphoria is real. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Anybody else surprised? You believe it's real?
Of course. It's a mental condition. My sister had anorexia. If she would have been given fat-affirming care, it would have killed her.
How do we test the claim that gender dysphoria is real? How would we test that? Given the ubiquity of social media and the crazy culture we live in that affirms anybody thinking anything, how do we test that claim?
I actually don't know. It's a good question.
That's always a good
something
answer.
I think a philosopher should come up with, personally.
You do.
I just work in learning and capability. I ain't no philosopher.
Well, maybe when you put me on that line, you can grill me. How would we test the claim that gender dysphoria is real? Is there like a scientific test or something? What could we do?
No, I mean, I think a lot of mental disorders, you can't test it. You just got to believe what you see and what you hear.
I watched a documentary once about, this is true, I'm not kidding you, about people who believed that they didn't want their limbs. Are you familiar with this phenomenon?
Yep.
Yeah. And there was a big controversy in the UK about, I don't know, Reed, could you look up the name of that? It's some disorder about people who don't want their limbs. There was a big...
identified as a paraplegic or something like
that. Yeah, and they would literally stab their limbs or cut their limbs. And there was a big controversy in the UK about whether the doctors who actually remove their limbs should be, lose their licenses for that. So you believe gender dysphoria is real. And I was mentioning that thing about the people with their limbs because I always wondered about how they would test that to figure it out. How would you test to see if somebody had a mental condition, or you don't even have to call it a mental condition, gender dysphoria, given that right now fMRIs won't do it. Maybe you can make inferences from a battery of psychological tests, but there's no way at this current level of technology that we can biologically test that. So how do you know it's real if it can't be tested?
Because I think it's the battery of questions. I think it would have to be some psychoanalysis and a judgment by someone who's experienced in that to say, yes, this person genuinely believes that they are of the sex that they're biologically not. And it's a similar thing to the person who wants their arm cut off.
You can look at the back. It's called body integrity identity disorder.
Or anorexia, the same sort of thing, right? I mean, how does someone know, other than through their behavior, that they're starving?
The testimonies.
Yeah. It would have to be some sort of
unequivocal testimonies of honest, sincere people over time.
Someone would have to make a judgment of that was their ailment, right? That they had, because I mean, for this particular ailment, most kids grow out of it. Something like 90% grow out by the time they get through puberty. So that's something that would have to be tested over quite a period of time, I think.
Okay. Two questions. One, is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have asked to help clarify your position?
In all of the, or like this particular question, or just like
anything about gender dysmorphia or anything?
I think it's, for me, I reckon my answers would have changed if we made it more detailed, like if it was yeah.
Yeah, and the thing that you said that helped me is when you said, at what age?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, not really.
Okay. Anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, I think you did good.
Oh, good. Thank you. Okay, hold on. Don't go. So if you ever want to test yourself and how effective you are at this isn't a foolproof 100%, but this is a really good, quick test. What line do you think I'd be on?
Ooh. I reckon you'd think gender dysphoria is real. I reckon you'd slightly agree.
And do you think do you think that I would believe we should affirm someone's gender if they're under 18?
No.
Do you think, what line do you think I'd be on in terms of affirming someone's gender?
Probably slightly disagree, considering you've probably heard of a lot of opinions over your time.
All right, that's fair. What line do you think I would be on in terms of, are you American?
I am.
Oh my goodness, we're everywhere. What line would I be on in terms of whether or not we should affirm someone's gender who's under 18?
I think you'd strongly disagree.
Okay, good. All right, so give him a hand. Okay. So to that last question, when you ask what line do you think I'd be on, you're looking for them to say two things. I don't know. And then whenever anybody says I don't know, I always say that's a great answer. It's a wonderful answer, because that way we don't create a culture where people pretend to know things they don't know. If they tell you that either they say I don't know, which is good, or that, like if I strongly disagree that we should affirm people under 18's gender. If they say strongly agree, you've done a good job. So kind of a mix of I don't know and where you're not. And then if they ask you, you can volunteer and tell them. But it's really important to try to be as neutral as possible when you do these. Okay, so how are we doing on time? We cool? Okay.
Another hour or so.
Okay. So why don't we do this? Why don't we run 2 of the most popular questions? Excellent. So we need 4 volunteers. Hopefully everybody will be new, hasn't done this before. We're going to look at the question. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. Let me repeat that. You got to really think about it. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. Okay, now we need four, not all at once. Okay, good, come on down. And then good, do I see a hand? Good, come on down. That's 2, come on down, 3 and 4, all new people, wonderful, wonderful, awesome. Okay, come on down. Okay, now we need to make a choice. Who wants to be the facilitator? Oh, that's a hand. Awesome. Okay, so you come over here. You come over here. Now, I know that you know the rules, but to get...
Are you sure though?
Well, I put myself on the agree, but not the strong agree. But just so you have it, so if you ever do this out of here, repeat the rules. You can do it the whole thing in 30 seconds, and make sure you repeat twice. This is a great audience because no one's moved, because you really don't want anybody to influence anybody else. So I'm going to give you the mic. Here's your plan of action. You can reset the game anytime you feel someone says something interesting. If you ever get caught or you're not sure what to say, look at the board. Read will help you. I do it all the time. So this truly, Read is a better version of my brain than my brain. The next thing you want to do is you want to ask people why they believe that. Now, if you get lucky and they're on a different line, that's the best case scenario. If you get lucky, you'll ask, what is your best argument for this that could cause the person to move one line?
Yeah.
And then go to the other person and say, can you give that to them? Can you supply them with that reason?
Okay.
The other thing to think about is you ask them directly, what would it take you to move one line to the left? What it would take you to move one line to the right? And then you have the 2 optional questions at the end. And the optional questions are, is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have? Or what line do you think I'd be on?
Okay.
Okay, so you cool with the game?
I think so.
Okay, give her a hand, give her a hand, give her a hand. Awesome.
So the question is gone, or that is the question. Oh, so the only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. I count to 3 and then we move. 1, 2, 3. That is not the scenario you promised, though.
No. Okay, all right, I'm going to help out here. Okay, so this. Okay, let me just. So I'm so sorry. Okay, so these are they're hard and they're uninteresting and they get you nowhere. So can I make a suggestion to you?
Yeah.
I suggest we tell Reed to pick another question that was voted on. Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so here.
Okay.
Reed, cue up another one.
Yes.
Equity is a worthy goal. Now, you know the first thing you want to do is what? Equity is a worthy goal.
As the question.
Yeah. Get them to define equity before they move at all. Make sure everybody agrees what the definition is before they move.
Oh, right. That wasn't part of your instruction for the previous questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Let's define what equity means to you.
I think of equity as the finishing line, not the starting line. So everyone ending up at the same place rather than starting at the same place.
Thank you for that.
I think of equity as equal opportunity to pursue things and have an opportunity to reach that equal outcome.
So that's very similar to what she said.
It's something to do with buying a house, and I never really understood it. No, I agree with
That's
the first
not okay.
definition. The first definition, the one about we all end up on the same line. Not these lines, like everyone ends up in the same situation. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Now see if you can get her, number 2, to agree with number 1's definition. If you can, everybody's on the same page. If you're not, then it's going to take you a while to whittle it down.
Okay, so can you repeat your definition, please?
Equal opportunity to pursue the same outcome and opportunity to reach that outcome, but not necessarily that you should have to have that equal outcome.
So, like your definition is more in the process.
In the pursuit,
Yeah.
in the means and not the end.
Yes, and you think?
I think it's more about the outcome, so not equality. Equality I think of as everyone being able to have a go at the thing, but I think of equity as everyone finishing in the same way, at the same spot.
And I'm starting to feel very nervous that I should have a dictionary on me.
What about, how about this? Equality of outcome is a worthy goal. That way you can substitute equity for the common meaning. Equality of outcome is a worthy goal. You can play the game with that question.
Yeah. Okay, so equality of outcome is a worthy goal. So then equality of outcome, would you change your definition?
No. Now do the game immediately. No, we've already,
okay.
now do the game. So step off, so,
All right.
yeah.
Okay, so on 3, equality of outcome is a worthy goal. On 3, 1, 2, 3. Thank you, guys. That's interesting. Yeah. So let's start with more extreme views. You say you strongly disagree. Can I please know why?
So I think equality of outcome is practically impossible to achieve. And even if it was, it would take so much fussing around with the system that I don't think it's a good idea. You'd have to bring everyone down to the same level to achieve that equality.
Thank you.
I probably agree with you in a lot of ways, but it's a worthy goal. I think people who are trying to who are trying to strive for equality of outcome are probably looking for that in everyone's best interest. Whether the outcome would be in everyone's best interest is a totally different answer. But striving for it might not be a bad thing if everyone was equally good, but doesn't necessarily mean that the outcome would be good. But having it be the goal, good.
Yes. So it's about the opportunity to strive for the outcome. Yes.
I think that's really interesting. I think a lot of us actually have something in common here already. So you're doing a great job. But I think the pursuit of everybody, I think it's a noble pursuit if we're idealistic. If we all could have the same stuff and have same, good amount of things and be all very comfortable and well off and fed, that would be nice. But the reality is we'll probably get, just a lot crapper stuff because there's just, it's a very difficult act. And then there's sort of, possibilities of corruption, and there's all sorts of horrible things that can happen. So I think if you could pursue some sort of utopia, it's not a bad idea. It's not super realistic, but having everybody fed and happy is definitely a nice idea.
Okay, now ask each person what the best argument is for them to convince someone else to move. What's the best thing they can say to convince someone to move toward the center? Go to him
Yes,
first.
that's, so what they say, like,
Yeah.
would convince you to move?
I'm still processing it. I don't think very fast. Yeah, they were very convincing arguments, and I was thinking of stepping one, but then maybe we have to define a worthy goal. Does a worthy goal have to be an achievable goal? And if it's not achievable, then is it still worthy? On the basis that I haven't clarified that in my own mind, I'm going to stay where I am for the moment, but I'm still thinking.
Okay, now ask them what that means, if they can give him what he's looking for.
It seems like you're saying that if the intention is good, and then it would be like the intention behind it would have to be good and correct.
Yeah, I agree with what you said before, that the intention is good and correct. But as you said, I think all three of us said it's not really achievable.
Realistic.
Or does that neutralise its worthiness? That's what I'm trying in my mind.
Did what he say, did that convince either one of you to move one line?
Yeah, to move.
I could probably be quite easily persuaded if you could show me that there was nothing that the outcome could never be good, then I could probably be persuaded to move. I'm not sure.
So
Ask if he can show that.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the question? If I could persuade you that it's never possible, then you would agree that it's not worthy.
Yeah. So it's not worth trying.
Okay, I could trot out the tired old line that socialism has failed every time it's been attempted. I could also drop some names of scientists and the term inductive reasoning, which states that if it's been tried many times and always failed, then it's reasonable to assume it will always fail.
Ask her if that's enough.
That's enough for me.
To move
Yep.
one line?
Yep.
Tell her to move then.
Thank you.
All right, clap when someone does that.
So where do you stand still?
While this has been happening, I've actually reasoned myself that way. Because I think there's something we're missing here, and it's what is outcome, right? So, I talked earlier about people having the basics covered, and I think that is a worthy pursuit. But what if we start to talk about the outcome being equal in that, we all have to wear the same clothes, and you don't get to wear your lovely flower top, and and you don't get to wear your very funny T-shirt. That wouldn't be much fun. And having a little bit of diversity of opinion certainly has its uses. So in that sense, we could have a different kind of discussion really on whether that outcome is actually ideal. And in that sense, I would be pretty keen to move that way. And on top of that, it is highly unrealistic. So I'm also convinced by that. So I'll move over a couple.
Thank you.
Wow. Whoa.
That's a joke.
Okay, good. Now, this is really good. So I like to end on a high note. So just ask them, just finish like a question, like what line do you think I'd be on?
Yeah, the ultimate question.
You haven't given us any indication of what line you might be on, so I don't know.
I thought I've given enough indication by asking questions.
No, I don't know.
Thank you for your honesty. That's the best answer, according to the very experienced
Peter.
What about you?
I know it's very boring and you got scammed in this one, but because you didn't get to do the game all that much. Or maybe you got extra skills, but I don't know because I haven't asked you.
Thank you for the honesty.
I'm going to be bold and say strongly disagree.
Now you can tell them if you want, but you don't have to tell them.
I do not agree. You're right. How strong is another discussion, but...
Good. All right, good. Thank you, everybody. Good. Good job. Good job. Good job. Good job. All right, we have time for one more claim. So we need, Reed will put the claim up. I think everybody has a great idea of how it's played. You don't have to repeat the rules or what have you. We did not do all the ethics ones. Affirmative action is wrong. I think we should do that one. Oh yeah, you want to do? Oh yeah, let's do it. Okay, we'll stand here.
We're doing it?
We'll stand here. And who wants to do it? First hand I see. One at a time, please. One at a time. I have not seen you, so you come up there, sir. Yeah, so you go up front. Now, I might
I'm going to win,
throw
just so you
something
know.
out. You're going to win. You win by moving lines, by changing. I might throw something out, which is I'm trying not to contaminate the exercise, but I might throw something out only. Hey, Reed, so I don't contaminate the exercise. Maybe you should help him out if he gets stuck. Are you cool with that? He'll try to put the questions in. So remember, you can reset the line. If someone says something like, what? You can reset the line.
Sure. So affirmative action is wrong. Okay. What does that mean?
To be honest, I don't know. I'm sitting on the rabbit-proof fence on that one.
It usually means giving people certain opportunities and certain advancements that have not come about as the result of a meritocratic process. And it's usually because of some immutable characteristic they possess.
That's what I should have said.
As I understand it as Peter does, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, so I'll get your move. Affirmative action is wrong. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move.
Oh, shit.
Glad I wasn't the only one on the beers hard last night.
I haven't even been drinking either.
I felt really good about my position, and now I feel a bit outcasted. Says something.
So, Peter, you said affirmative action is wrong. Strongly agree. Why?
Boy, so many reasons. I think that if you create systems that promote people based upon things they haven't earned, it undermines a trust or a confidence in the system, a kind of legitimacy. But beyond that, I think it's unfair to the individuals because they'll always have a little asterisk by their name. Oh, they didn't earn that. Oh, he only got that because he has X characteristic. And I think it's a profound unfairness to those individuals.
Matt, you're on the slightly disagree line. Affirmative action is wrong. Why?
I mean, I'm up for grabs, that's why I'm slightly, but I've seen too much, I hate to use this word, inequity of outcome, which I hate equality of outcome, but I've seen too much of it where it's not up to the work of the individual, it's up to things that happened to them. So even as someone who believes in internal locus of control strongly, I think that at this point, until he convinces me, we should leave room to not necessarily equalise the outcome, but we shouldn't blanket say it's wrong to do things to help people up.
Okay. What would convince you to move that way one step? Or that way, or strongly in that way?
Look, to be honest, there's compelling arguments on both sides, to be completely frank about it. I'm a big believer in merit and the ability to people to work into their position, but there are structural inequalities, to use a buzzword phrase I'm sure people will hate, that do need to be addressed to help people, I suppose, give them an opportunity. So I'm just going to be, I don't know what it's going to persuade me there. It's a vexed question, and yeah, couldn't give you a straight answer, I'm sorry.
Okay. What would get you to move one step closer to Matt?
I'll answer your question, but may I make a suggestion
Yes,
to see if?
Yep.
So if we take the argument that you said, and you said that there are issues of equity, wouldn't the best way to remediate those be to provide everybody with equality of opportunity? And if the answer to that is yes, then you've argued against your own position, and I think that would justify a move to the neutral.
I wouldn't agree with how you've characterised my position.
Okay. So what is your position again?
If, like you said, it's often based on a characteristic of the person, then that would persuade me more that way. But I'm suggesting, and what I would try and to convince you to move this way, I would try and convince you that sometimes it's as a result of something external to the person, out of their control. The argument that we're dealt a different hand of cards. We're all dealt a different hand of cards.
So why would being dealt a different, so do you mean like if I'm short, I could never be an NBA player? You don't probably have NBA here. Like if I'm a midget, I can't be a rugby player. Is that what you mean?
No, what I mean is we, for example, have some subsidies for, perhaps if you live further out from a CBD, then you have subsidies for, say, farmers, because they have to travel longer distance than us, or we might have subsidies in terms of car registration, that kind of thing. To me, that's a form of affirmative action. It's a balancing act where we've provided a privilege to someone based on a circumstance without even really looking whether it's a characteristic or it's the choice that they lived rurally or whatever. I don't want to call that wrong, and I don't want to do pure equal opportunity in that sense.
I think I understand.
Okay, right. Shall we reset?
You're the boss.
Let's reset. We have the question, taking your point of view, Matt, about, say, instead of having a blanket statement of affirmative action is wrong, can you say affirmative action is justified in certain circumstances?
If you said it's more something like affirmative action can cause great damage and can wreck the place, I would be strongly agree.
Right.
I'm very suspicious of affirmative action. I don't like it.
Right. But what happens if we had affirmative action is justified in certain circumstances?
Affirmative action, okay, sure.
Okay, we'll do that. Affirmative action is justified in certain circumstances. Move in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So, okay. Sully, agree. You've got agree. Strongly disagree. Why?
Well, I can't think of a circumstance. Well, for me to move to the disagree or even neutral or maybe even slightly agree, I'd have to know an example. If they can furnish me with an example if they can furnish me with an example, then I'd be willing to change my mind. I can't think of an example of when it's ever acceptable morally to discriminate against someone on the basis of something they didn't choose, like their race.
Give an example, Matt.
Yeah, I think we've got a definitional problem. Even though we agreed at the start, I would see affirmative action as, say, for example, disability, building a ramp for someone who's had their legs blown off to get into here tonight. Whereas you seem to be talking more about the woke kind of affirmative action.
So,
definitional, yeah, definitional priority.
okay, so why isn't that, so to build a ramp for somebody, for example, who's in a wheelchair, that seems to me to be a quality of opportunity, not a quality of outcome. You want to give everybody a fair opportunity. You don't, well, at least in the United States, we don't use affirmative action in that context. Maybe here you do, but we don't use it like that.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think that's why we've got a definitional misunderstanding.
Employing someone, giving someone a job, so like a quota for employers to employ people with disabilities.
Quotas?
Might not. Somebody might have an intellectual disability and wouldn't be employed by people, and then so thinking of incentives for them to work, to have any form of
Quotas or welfare to help them survive?
Yeah, I think in that case, if the case is that some people in the society, independent of their race or some other exogenous characteristic, need help. They need psychological help, maybe they don't have enough money for food. I have no problem whatsoever having maybe even a significant portion of my taxes go to help the least advantaged people in the society. There's a very, very different proposition than systemic discrimination. Hold on, he's the boss. He's the boss.
That's another for another day. That's another day. So, okay.
What are we over here for? Welfare.
We just changed quotas to welfare. So it's like. Okay. Can we go back to affirmative action is justified in certain circumstances? So can we go back to the position? So you were in the strongly disagree. You were back here. Yeah. Okay.
Choose a line, buddy. Follow the rules.
Oh, yeah.
Comedians.
Sorry. What would get you to move one step towards Peter?
Probably a diversity spot at the university's working out, maybe. I don't know.
Show me the money. Okay. So Peter's asked for an example, Matt. What would get you to move one step?
He would need to just quite easily convince me that I misunderstand affirmative action, and I'm talking about something different, which he kind of did just now when he was talking about we're all on the same page for warfare.
Okay, right. No worries. Cool. So you had another question earlier about, so not affirmative action is wrong. So you looked at the moral, affirmative action is completely reprehensible.
Yes.
Okay. Well, what if we go the other way? So if we go, affirmative action is completely reprehensible.
No, that's what it said. It said affirmative action. She's saying if affirmative action is a good thing.
Is a good thing. Okay.
Reversing that.
Yeah. So if we said affirmative action is a good thing. Okay, if we had that as a question, can we go back to the neutral line? To the neutral line, please? So the question would then be, is affirmative action a good thing? Or is good? Is affirmative action good? Move in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right. You're on the neutral. Why?
It would be good in certain circumstances. For example, and I know this is going to come out funny, but I don't mean it to be funny. Like if you were in service to a foreign enemy government and you wanted to utterly destroy the legitimacy of the entire civilization, then it would be a good thing.
What would take you to move one step that way?
I'm struggling to steelman the other side because I think if affirmative action exists or it needs to exist, it shows that we're living in a broken world. I think it's bad. I think it points to a bad precondition that we need or have affirmative action.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Just almost every argument that you've given since we've been here is an argument for equality of opportunity.
I'm a big fan of equality of opportunity.
Right.
Yep.
So I think you can just cut away all equity or affirmative action, all of it. You can just do away with that and focus on equality of opportunity. Because I don't think the rest of it is just, I just think it's better, it's more efficacious that way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there we go.
Oh, that's a good one.
Affirmative action requires sacrificing equality of opportunity. Oh, okay. Oh, everybody reset. We'll do this one. Wow. Affirmative action requires sacrificing equality of opportunity. Whoa.
Hold on, I gotta process that.
Yeah, I know. Equality of opportunity.
Wow, that's a really good question.
All right. Move in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Equality of opportunity. You strongly agree, Matt. Why?
I would need 10 minutes to think about this question, but from the very brief little thing, trying to live in his shadow, his mental shadow, I do see it as an evil, like I said earlier. And I think if you do have to mess with a free market, if I can call it a free market, by creating a unjust or non-meritocracy outcome, then meritocratic. Doesn't matter. I'll give up. I do think you are sacrificing some equality of opportunity. It's not equal anymore. I've had a leg up. Yeah.
What would get you to move one way or the other?
Probably another 5 minutes to think about it, but yeah, look, it's a conundrum. It's a very good question. Sorry, I've got a mic there. I forgot about it. It's a very good question, and I don't have a simple answer to it, to be frank. So, bearing in mind, I've been at a festival for the last 2 weeks, done late nights and beers, so my critical thinking skills are a little bit behind these two boys.
No worries. You explain your position.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really difficult question, and I hadn't thought about it before this evening. I guess what would make me move to the neutral is the word require. One of my problems, the latent problem, is that if you have affirmative action, people will look at a system and look at equal or proportionate representation of, for example, certain races within a system. And they'll look at the outcome and they'll be like, wow, see, the system works. But maybe the system is broken, and that's why you needed, which is piggybacking off of your point, why you needed affirmative action in the first place. So there's a danger of affirmative action when we don't fix the institutions, particularly the educational institutions that are broken. There's a danger, at least in my country, when we have young people in particular who don't have not only access to education in the first rate, but access to healthcare. And there's a danger in thinking that systems are okay when you just look at the outcomes. So that depends on how we traffic in the word requires. So I could move, is there something inherent in the definition of affirmative action that necessitates sacrificing equality of opportunity? I don't really know the answer to that question. I'd really have to think about it, and I'd really have to look at what data is out there. And I think it's an empirical question largely. I'd have to look at what's been done and how that's manifest.
All right. I think that's it for me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope that helps. Just a few, very, very quickly. If you ever do this or if you ever play with this, one thing that didn't come up tonight that I often find helpful is if somebody tells you a reason and you're like, oh, wow, that's really interesting, but it doesn't seem that it corresponds to the slightly agree. It seems that it corresponds to the neutral. You can always say, well, why aren't you on the neutral? And then you listen to their reason. Okay, the other thing that you can do with this, with emerging themes are, you'll find that people will have built-in defense mechanisms for their conclusions, but not their reasoning process. So, and it's not just people who come up here, but it's just, I wrote about that in my first book. It's just a feature of the architecture of the mind and how we've been socialized. So if someone says we have a conclusion, most people think in terms of conclusions, battling conclusions, and they just deliver their messages. But, well, that's interesting. Why do you believe that? What would it take to change your mind? One thing you can do, so this is like a Likert scale, it's a scale. If you ever get stuck, particularly at the end, and you're engaging someone who isn't clear, you can say to them something, oh, that's really interesting. So you're over here and strongly agree, but I'm here and slightly disagree. Walk me through it. What am I missing? What fact, what piece of evidence, or what have you, would move me? And if you say that about their reasoning as opposed to their conclusion, they won't have a built-in defensive posture or mechanism. They're much more likely to have that conversation non-adversarially. So this is a way that you can use almost always to speak across divides with people. It's free, it costs nothing, it's not proprietary. We both run nonprofits. We want everybody to use this. We want to start speaking civilly to people again. We don't want to have what you said in the beginning. America is exporting some very nasty cultural stuff right now. And so hopefully this will be a prophylactic to engage people, to allow people to speak across divides instead of getting nasty or even, forbid, being violent with each other. So this is a way to people can use. Okay, thanks.
Thank you for teaching us this game. I have a question for you straight up, though. When you did that with us now, how do you rate the openness of people to move? Because I was surprised how willing people were to move across these lines. And especially when I interview people, the more bigger or famous or whatever that they are, I find they're less willing to move lines in conversations. And I've started to ask these questions. Can you steel man the other side? Can you break your own argument? And I'm finding almost universally, they can't. They just don't go there.
Yeah, that could be a function of audience capture. It could be a function of any one of a number of things. But you'll find more often than not and Reed and I go all over the world and we do this. Oh, by the way, hand for Reed. Hand for Reed. You'll find, and this is, I find this fascinating, people will stand in a line not because they have sufficient evidence to warrant the belief, but because they have some moral impulse. I am a good person, good people stand in this line, I'm going to stand on this line. So they have a moral impulse first, and then they calibrate it to the line. And that's really important to know, is you're not dealing with evidence and argument. Well, you are, but you're really just dealing with a moral question. And so that's why when someone says, I don't know, I always say, that's a great answer, right? Because that's how we want to nudge people to be more rational. I think a question you could ask is, who are 3 people who are largely respected by the other side, and what are the best arguments they make?
Yeah, getting more specific than just break your own argument.
And when you do that, you'll find if people cannot name those 3 people, what you're trying to do is you're trying to nudge them to, and there will be a component of saving face. People want to save face. But you're trying to nudge them to say, wow, geez, maybe my confidence isn't warranted in this. But the key is you're not nudging them all the way down to the other side of the board. You just want to nudge them one line. You just want to instill enough doubt so that they realize the value of intellectual humility because they don't know the arguments on the other side.
What criminal lawyers do, creating a reasonable doubt in his mind, and that's all you need. And I think that's really interesting, because that, to me, was a cross between cross-examination, psychology, and philosophy all infused in the one game, and I think that's fantastic, Peter. So yeah, well done to you. That's great. And Reed.
We should tell people that you're a criminal lawyer, so...
Yeah, I didn't get disbarred, I just want to clarify that.
Soon.
Wasn't a police informant, unlike some of the Melbourne establishment lawyers I believe you have over here. It's got the most corrupt police force, and the bloody lawyers are all shonky. So anyway...
After tonight, I'm reporting you. Hey, can I ask one more question on behalf of the audience? How do you rate this audience? So are they more open, less open? What differences did you see between tonight and others that you've done this with?
That's a good question. I've found that when I do this in the United States on college campuses, people actively seek a reason to be offended. They want to be outraged. And by the way, I am so sorry to say this, but this is one of the things we are exporting to you. We are exporting an ideology that makes victimhood a virtue. We're exporting an ideology that makes being offended a noble goal. And you need to guard against that.
How?
Well, that's a very good question. But I mean, for me, I think it's promoting art and the exchange of ideas and education, I think, primarily. Education is the key to all this.
We've lost.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people who are very intelligent but don't have a traditional tertiary education. I mean, look at Paul Keating. What do you think about him? Regardless, he was 15 when he left school, never went to university, and he's considered one of the country's greatest prime ministers. Learning is internally driven, in my eyes. People who are hungry for knowledge will seek it out. And I think it's instilling that value in people is to be hungry for knowledge. And you're not entitled to opinion, but take pride in your opinion. And famous Bon Mott asserts that opinions are like arseholes, but they differ from arseholes in the sense that yours should be constantly and thoroughly examined. So that's what I would say about that.
Let me piggyback onto that. A question from Arwen. Arwen says, Peter, for you, what is the best way to approach impossible conversations with close friends or family members, particularly those that are reluctant to discuss certain issues? So you've given us a tool here.
So the first thing I would say is you have to spend more time listening. The second thing is find commonalities that you have with the other person. I'm gonna jump to the end. The most important thing you can do is that you can let friends be wrong. You don't have to be in ideological congruity with literally everything someone believes. I mean, if you did that, you would die sad and lonely. There'd be not only would there be no point to it, it would be against your own interest. So you have to figure out what your deal breakers are. And most of the time, we've miscalibrated our threshold. So listen, engage, be honest. Don't try to say something because you want somebody to feel good. That's a form of unkindness. Tell them, if you don't say things that you actually believe to somebody, then they won't know you for who you are. They'll only know you for who they think you are. So you have to have an honest relationship by speaking openly and honestly. But that doesn't mean you literally brain dump. That doesn't mean if you're thinking, oh, geez, she's pretty hot, I'd like to, whatever. No, you have to have some kind of a mechanism by which you can be open and honest without literally dumping everything in your consciousness to somebody. And usually, that line isn't particularly difficult to find.
So listen and ask more questions.
Listen, formulate the conversation in terms of questions. When someone says something to you, repeat it back to them to make sure you've understood. Very powerful phrase, people have written whole books about this, is I hear you. Say that. You can use something from hostage negotiations called minimal encouragers. So we're having a conversation and you say, my boss today, he was an asshole, I can't stand him. So you could just take the last 3 words if someone says, this is not a game or a strategy, just lets them know that you're listening. The last thing says, I can't stand them. So you say, oh, you can't stand them. You just repeat
yes.
And then you just listen. So it's an invitation to have that conversation, to let them know that you're actually listening instead of going or thinking about your day or what have you. So genuinely listen. So that's part of the problem. We think we're listening, but we're actually not listening.
It's funny because you're not describing a logical game or convincing at all. You're describing an empathetic, connecting game.
Yeah, because we know that people don't form their beliefs on the basis of reason and evidence. They formulate their beliefs first, then they look for the landscape of reason and evidence to calcify the things that they already believe.
So the strategy, facts don't care about your feelings, suck it. Not a good strategy. Sorry, Ben.
No, it depends on what your goal is. If you want to have loving relationships, if you surround yourself with people who matter.
No, but to move them, to convince them.
But you should never try to convince anybody of anything. You should just give them the tools to convince themselves of something.
It's deep.
Would you describe what you're just talking about there as partially the Socratic method when you're restating someone's beliefs and clarifying what you think they're meaning?
Yeah, in a relationship, I think there's an element of that. Again, as I said before, it cannot be underestimated. The highest form of this is if you do it to yourself. So we're all, look, the only thing people want more than to be right is to belong. We all want to be loved. We all want someone to care about us. We all want someone to hug us at the end of the day. And this preoccupation that we have with bullshit minutia of political things, ultimately at the end of the day, these things they simply don't matter in your relationship with someone. So you have to determine what you want and what it means to just love someone and care about them.
On that subject, I read something that Socrates was alleged to have said. And he said, because his wife notoriously had a foul temper, when he was asked why he married her, he said that a good horse trainer needs to practice on the most mean-spirited of animals.
I don't remember that line, but
just that, I find that as an interesting thing, because relationships are often where these things, on my personal life, my friends, their relationships come a cropper, to use an Australian phrase, on these issues a lot, and they don't have a way of discussing them in a healthy and productive way, and it just descends into anarchy and name-calling and the family court.
And the family court. Well, we should talk about that in the last 20 minutes. Giving up on a conversation. So this is actually a combination question here. One from Greg, who asks you, Peter, when should you give up talking to someone, and is it worthwhile talking to people who are beyond reach? But I just want to back that into another question about your Twitter. Someone is asking about, here we go.
I can't keep all those things in my brain at once.
I'll help you. But I'm just saying when to give up on a conversation. Okay. But this is what you seem to do on Twitter, according to Michael. Yeah. Michael says, In your book, you list conditions under which it becomes pointless to have a conversation. So, I'm wondering when to give up. You seem like you struggle on Twitter, Peter, to stay out sometimes. So what I'm asking is, what they're asking is, do you ever think it's necessary to disengage with people and give up on them?
On Twitter or in real life?
They're using Twitter to kind of wedge you and say, you give up on some people.
Yeah, so I just want to be crystal clear. I have never given up on anybody. I have dealt with literally people in prisons. I've dealt with people who've serially harassed me. I've dealt with truly deranged people. And I genuinely believe that every single person has an opportunity not only to live a life of reason, but to just not be a dick, right? And so I think that often what people are really seeking when they're trying to, because you never really know why someone's engaging you. They could be engaging you. It's like you never really know when someone asks you a question, if they're asking you a question because they want to know the answer. The reason is usually no. I mean, I found that. So Twitter is not real life, as it has been said repeatedly. I sometimes struggle with wanting to throw it all away, because it really is like my partner James Lindsay said, my writing partner. It's like a cesspool that follows you. But no, I don't. I think you have to have more hope. I mean, we know from the testimonies of people who have done bad things, they've kind of, redemption is a religious framework that I don't buy into, but we know that these people have realized their mistake. Reed and I were just in Florida, and we have really remarkable footage of a young woman who was woke. She's an ex-Muslim. She was woke, and she led it wouldn't be too strong of a word to say, a crusade against Professor Charles Nagy, and got him basically canceled. I mean, it's a truly horror show. And we got them together, and she basically said, I led a witch hunt against you, and they had an intense conversation. So, and we know all the time it happens that people change their mind, they change their beliefs. So I think we just need to be more hopeful when we deal with people.
So are there any conditions under which we should give up on a particular conversation? Maybe not on the person.
Whatever your comfort level is. If you're not comfortable having a conversation, then don't have it.
Okay. We should ask you about those hoax papers when you raised James Lindsay. We've got a couple of questions on these. If you don't know does anyone know what Sokal squared is? This idea of don't worry about Sokal, but was 2018 you published a bunch of academic papers deliberately designed to get peer reviewed and point out that the peer review process is garbage. So you did things like rewrite Mein Kampf.
Correct.
Yep. And a lot of your papers got peer reviewed and passed and published. And then, you revealed it all, or someone found you out. Can you please tell us, Peter, this is from Catherine, about some of your favourite papers that you submitted, and which one you were most shocked was accepted?
A favourite paper that we submitted, it's a very hard concept to get, and so I never talk about it because it's so complicated to explain to people. It was when the joke's on you. Okay, so let's see if I can explain this. Okay, so there's something in the literature. Have you heard punching down? The expression punching down? The idea is that in the context of what we call the grievance studies literature, you never want to punch down for humor. So you can't make fun of, for example, a marginalized group. You can only punch up. So a little background. In 2017, Jim and I published a paper, The Conceptual Penis as a Social Construct. And we argue that penises were, among other things, responsible for climate change. It's too bad that marijuana is not legal here, because I'd suggest immediately go buy legal marijuana and read this paper. So in that paper, people were just completely outraged at us for publishing this paper. So fast forward to my favorite paper, which was When the Joke's on You. So in the paper, When the Joke's on You, we wrote the paper to make fun of ourselves, and we named ourselves, saying that what Boghossian and Lindsay was doing was not funny, it was immoral, it was disgraceful. And the name of the paper was When the Joke's on You, thinking that the joke was on us, but the joke was really on them for publishing a paper saying that the joke was on us. but it had many more meta levels to the paper. That was that was my favorite paper, but nobody ever talks about it because it's just too conceptually complex, it's too weird.
So what one were you most shocked was accepted?
The paper, the only harsh word I ever had with my writing partner was he sent me a paper that was just so asinine. I mean, it was just so fucking ludicrous. I said, there's just you've completely wasted, 20 minutes of my time looking this over. And it basically, I mean, I'm even hesitant to say because it's so vulgar. We talked about, menstruation and menstrual huts and like crazy shit. And then he pulled poetry off of a random generated poetry thing. And I said, there's absolutely no chance this is going to be accepted. Dude, you've wasted my time. And it was accepted. Yeah, and then, of course, the dog park paper got an award.
Can you briefly tell us the dog park? Is it queer performativity in dog parks?
Yeah, so we basically argued that it was so crazy that this is actually the one that we got busted when we had many more papers under. We got 7 published, and we're probably going to get 12 or 13 published. But this was so crazy. But we claimed that there was a woman who did research in parks in Portland, Oregon, and she closely examined the genitals of 10,000 dogs, and then interrogated their owners as to their sexual orientation, and determined that we need to leash men like we leash dogs. And to justify that, she used black feminist criminology, which had literally nothing to do with anything, nothing. But the reason that I added that to the paper is that I knew that there were so many oppression variables there that there was no possible way anybody could criticize it because they'd be racist and misogynist. So I figured that was, thank you. So I figured that was perfect. But yeah, and so we came up with these just truly ghastly and utterly ridiculous. I mean, the numbers just didn't even add up. And they would beat the dogs who performed queer performativity. They'd do jumping jacks to get them to stop engaging in homosexual behaviors, things of that nature. So that was one. And I was the only one who had ever even been to a dog park, and we won an award for that.
I think, well, obviously what you've done, that is incredible. I can't believe, when I first started reading them, I was shocked. And I have wondered what was going through your mind when your peers started to, believing the papers were real, your academic peers started to praise those works, right? Some of them said, this is an amazing paper, and cited
an invaluable contribution to the literature. That's when we said that when we tried to explain why men don't like large objects rammed up their asses. Because we said that it was because they're latently transphobic, which has literally nothing to do with anything putting in anybody's anus whatsoever.
So what was going through your mind when people were heaping praise on you like that for these papers? Like the state of academia, were you surprised?
No, I wasn't surprised. I was heartbroken because I knew that the scholarship was so utterly corrupt, and I knew that so many people got their positions of tenure, which is a job for life, predicated upon writing to something that's morally fashionable. I realized that our institutions had lost their true north, their moral compass. I realized that entire veins and bodies of literature were corrupt, and I didn't know how this problem could be fixed.
Jack asked a question about fixing this problem, right? He asked whether, because you're starting this new university, University of Austin, right? Oh, somebody knows about that. Do you think, what did he say? He says, for those of us who wish to see critical retained in the public discourse.
Seek what retained?
Critical thinking retained. Is parallel institutions like what you're creating, University of Austin, is that the only way or the best hope? Or can we still salvage existing ones by throwing enough bales of hay into the polluted stream?
Someone watched I did a talk at the Ramsey Center where I talked about how you if you want to remove particulates from a stream, you throw bales of hay in them. And I suggested that, my father told me that, who is long past now, but that you could clean up rivers by cheaply and effectively doing that. And my hypothesis is that you could do the same things with people's belief lives and their cognitive structures by kind of throwing these conceptual bales of hay. And this is a way This is like a little tiny bale of hay. Now I forgot. What was the question again?
So the question is whether the only way forward is to create
yeah, that's
parallel
right.
or to do
so
that.
So there are some people, like my friend Chris Rufo, who believes that the institutions can be reformed. There are other people like myself, and I've talked to Chris about this, and I genuinely respect what Chris is doing, and if I could wave a magic wand, I would certainly hope it would succeed, and we'll see, time will tell. And Chris, I would encourage Chris to do that, but I'm not going to sit around with my fingers crossed and hope that Chris succeeds. I'm going to build new things, and if Chris succeeds, great, and if Chris doesn't succeed, then I will have spent the time and the investment in building a parallel institutions that are not ideologically captured, because that's the problem. So you can think about it like this. You have the problem at multiple levels. You have the theoretical problem at the top. Then you have the institutional problem, specifically academic institutions in K through 12. And then you have the beliefs and how they manifest themselves. This street epistemology, looking at reasons and beliefs people have, you can see the woke reasons that people have for believing things. The Grievance studies was an attack at the theoretical foundation of the ideology. The next step, which Reed and I are pursuing, I have a nonprofit National Progress Alliance, the next step is to expose the institutions and their ideological capture. They're already delegitimized. We need to push them further into delegitimacy, and at the same time, we need to build new institutions, because I'm telling you, in no uncertain terms, the Chinese are not worried about equity. The Chinese are not worried about giving you a safe space or a trigger warning or a microaggression. So as Tom Friedman says, the world is flat. We're in a very competitive market. So if anybody wants to try to change the institutions, best of luck to you. I'm moving on. I'm done. I'm building new things.
So then that makes me wonder, and I guess a question for both of you, how can people on the ground, you talk about those layers, what can average people do that are not academics to either push it into delegitimacy and stop what's coming for us?
The number one thing you can do, and this is going to sound silly, is you can learn the meanings of words. You can learn what it is when people who are either in the orbit of the ideology or who traffic in the ideology, you can learn that. Reed, could you pull up the woke words?
Oh.
So one of the things I've done is I've made, I don't even know, 20, 30 words. They're just 60 seconds. This is what woke people mean when they use the word equity. This is what woke people mean. And this is not me. This comes from, I've read this stuff way too much. This comes from the literature. So Woke in Plain English is the name of the series. And we've put out many little series like this that people can go to and just learn the meanings of words. The other thing you can do is you just kind of educate yourself. So one technique that you see the way that this invades the institution, the reason so many people have been hoodwinked by this is because it's a Mott and a Bailey. They'll say one word like equity, but they'll mean something else by it. They'll say one word like inclusion. And what you hear by inclusion is, we want to include everybody. Well, of course you want to include everybody, but that's not what inclusion means. Inclusion, to create an inclusive environment, is to create a welcoming environment. To create a welcoming environment, you have to make sure people aren't offended. To make sure people aren't offended, you have to restrict speech. Inclusion is restricted speech. But if you don't know that, you see inclusion. Well, of course I want to include people of different races or different ability statuses, someone in a wheelchair. Of course you want to include, but that's not what they mean. So the number one thing you can do is you can learn what people mean by words. The second thing you can do is you can speak up when you hear nonsense. You can speak up honestly and boldly, but make sure that you listen and do exactly what we did here. Listen and make sure you understand what someone said, and then ask them, simple question like, that's interesting. Is that falsifiable? What's the best way to test that? You saw Reed wrote that on the board. If we don't know how to test that, then what differentiates that? Well, you wouldn't say from a religion, but that's what I was thinking. If you don't know how to test that, then how do you know it's true? What differentiates that from an ideology? if you've noticed, everything I did was just asking questions. That's all it is. The ideology is this is not a very sophisticated thing. It's very unsophisticated. And the people who are promoting this stuff, these are not really intelligent people. They're charlatans and ideologues. Few targeted questions, you can disrobe the whole thing.
Couldn't agree more. And a good joke and a good question have a lot in common because they expose, right? And that's one thing I've often found with my cultural debates that I've had in my industry is that challenging people on defining the word that they're using, and the patriarchy gets thrown around as a favourite term. And most people don't know what it means. It's a system of legal and financial control by men. And you ask a modern feminist what they mean by it, and they sit there like a stunned mullet. So yeah, that's great advice, Peter. And like he said, arm yourself with knowledge. And it's not that difficult to get your head around some of these concepts. I mean, these are the concepts 15-year-olds can understand.
What about with cancel culture? You're at the front line of culture doing jokes that are quite offensive. Thank you very much, earlier tonight. But how do you fight it on a cultural front? Because that's the kind of discussions that I'm sitting in a lounge room and you come on TV and I've got some other people there and I'm like, oh, that's funny, and look over there, they're offended. I'm like, oh, I don't know, am I allowed to laugh? How can we navigate that space?
Look, it is difficult, but that's one of the reasons I love a comedy club. It's the most pure form of democracy that there is, because you can't control how you vote. And laughter is an involuntary response, and that's why women often have trouble with them, because they're angered and amused at the same time. And the coexistence of those emotions, it causes the system to melt down sometimes. And look, it is very difficult, and I've made some mistakes dealing with it in the past, but you learn from your mistakes, and well, not all the time, but it is difficult, and it's taxing. I mean, you would have known this, Peter, with some of the online debates and the hostility you get from people who claim that they're tolerant and diverse, except in opinion. They can be very vicious, and it's taxing on your mind and your body, and I know it certainly took a lot out of me in the last 2 years with what I endured. So yeah, look, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone as a career. It's thankless work at times, but it's really important work, and you can do it on a micro level, with comedy and just asking questions.
All right, well, let me just ask one more question in our last 7 minutes. Thank you for submitting so many questions, people. There's no way we're going to get through them all, but after we close in 7 minutes, we will be here. You can have a chat with
we're going to hang out afterwards, so if anybody wants to just hang out, that's great.
But this is, I think, get super practical and do some future predictions. Love to hear from both of you what you see coming for us, and if you can, specifically in Australia. You've made a few predictions, over dinner. You say it's coming for you, Matt. And I'm like, I hope not, because we are different than America. We have our own issues. We're a different sort of population. What do you think is coming for us in the next number of years?
So I'm going to start with my positive prediction first. After it metastasizes through your institutions and ruins tons of people's lives, it has an expiration date. I don't know what that expiration date is. The ideology is inherently not sustainable. And it's not sustainable for a multitude of reasons. One reason it's not sustainable is the only way you can sustain something is either through tyranny, which they're trying, or through a kind of reason, a kind of apologetic, a kind of understanding of the arguments and rebuttal of those. Christians have Christian apologists that are extraordinarily good at this. They don't have an apologia. They don't have a defense of this stuff. In fact, by its very design, it's indefensible. It cannot be defended. That doesn't mean it's not capable of being defended. It means that its proponents have built into the structure that you do not have dialogue and discourse, because those things are tools of the patriarchy and white supremacy. So my prediction to you is, my ultimate prediction is that this will be a blip at some point and it will go away. My immediate prediction, however, is far more dire. It's that you're about a year behind. Reed and I were in a meeting with reporters, think tank people, deans, and Reed walked out and said something to me, and I had the exact same thought the entire meeting. What was it, Reed? Just give it a year. Just give it a year. So it's a kind of...
This is in Sydney. This is in Australia.
In Australia. So I think you don't know the danger because you haven't experienced it yet. Whenever you're dealing with things with an identity level salience, it has a propensity to make people really upset. Although, you know what I will say? You saw it with the Parker Posey. You saw it a little bit. You got a glimpse of what's coming to you. You got a glimpse. That's the very, very, very beginning. But remember, they only have so many tools in the tool set. You're a racist, you're a Nazi, you're a bigot, you're a homophobe, you're a trans. There's only so many things people can call you. What's amazing is that those words still have staying power, no matter how many times they've been used. And as long as we have people who cower in the face of this, it will continue to spread and destroy people. So what is coming is crystal clear to me, because I've seen the trajectory that you're on as an American cultural export. The trajectory is not good, but it's not hopeless, and sooner or later it will burn itself out.
So what do you make of the thing I've been putting to you all day? This idea that we're a different soil. So we're less radicalizable than the US, less divided. We've got issues. We're very sleepy. We don't care. We like just our beer and our footy, and that's probably our problem.
Okay, so this idea that there's something special about you. So what do you have? So it's come to all of the Anglosphere. Let's just bracket out Australia for a second. I just wrote the foreword to a book which is amazing, Snakes in the Ganga by Indian public intellectual Rajiv Malhotra, and he talks in very detailed ways. A massive book. It took me forever to get through. He talks in great detail about how wokeism is exported. It's a neo-colonial export on Indian institutions. It's come to Western Europe. In fact, I lived in Hungary 4 months last year, and I gave a talk before some lawyers in Austria, and somebody came up to me at the end and said, I can't do an Austrian accent, but this is bullshit, this is never going to happen. And then he came up to me the next time when I went back, he's like, oh my God. That's what he said to me. Oh my God, you were so right. I cannot believe it. So we know that this is spreading throughout the world. I published a piece in Spectator on November 8th, and I talked about the mechanism of how it weaves its way in. One of the ways the ideology weaves its way in through institutional capture is that people are all bamboozled by what words mean. They're bamboozled by equity, they're bamboozled. And so once it gets its way into a policy position, then they Mott and Bailey it. They switch from the normal definition, dictionary definition of the word, to the woke definition. The problem is you speak English here. And I'll tell you why that's a problem. The Mott and the Bailey. That's from Tim Urban's wonderful book, What's Our Problem? The problem is, for this to work in a culture that doesn't speak English, it's very difficult for it to work, and I'll tell you why. The only way the ideology can get in is if it can turn on two definitions. But when you translate a word, only the most common translation, the standard translation, gets in. The woke word does not get in. But you can't help it because you speak English. So by definition, so how does it, like you can watch videos. Rajiv sent me a video, for example, of the Supreme Court of of India. I have no idea about Indian languages, but he's speaking, and then there's like diversity, blah, 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 equity, blah, inclusion, blah, blah. You can see that now with the kids, younger people in particular, wearing shirts that have certain woke words on them. You can see this, and the lawyers were complaining to me that the words are now coming in through English, because it can't come in through any other language. It's not that there's this inherent prophylactic about German. Woke can work in any language, but English is the language of the woke. So once the language is in, once they traffic in the words and it goes in policy proposals, then public policy is made predicated upon the woke definition of the words. But as you're in Australia and you're an island, which I have to remind you of constantly, it's by default, the words are already here. There's nothing you can do. The words are here. It's a mimetic. We think of evolution as biological. This is a mimetic spread of an idea, what my friend Gad Sad calls an idea pathogen. This is an idea pathogen that mimetically rewrites people's brains, almost quite literally, their cognitive capacities.
What's coming for us, Corey? And do you put any credence in this little argument that you just destroyed of mine, that we are going to succumb to the woke mind virus a bit differently from the US?
Look, I think it's going to play out the exact same way. Where they go, we follow. I mean, in many ways, this is the 51st state. We don't value freedom and liberty like the Americans do, and I think that's a real big problem. And we don't value the guns as much, and that's not such a big problem, but who knows? I mean, as the state goes feral, maybe we won't regret what happened with the guns in this country. But I see it in much the same way. I think this stuff's got an expiration date. There is going to be a backlash, and I'm seeing on the ground at the fringe festivals that they're losing a cultural election in a landslide, in my view. And
the woke are?
Yes,
okay.
And the only metric I have for that is ticket sales. And I had a venue in Adelaide, and there was a non-binary comedian in the venue next to me that subsidised to the nines on arts grants. I sold far more tickets than him, I don't know how to refer to that person. I sold more tickets than them every night by a long way. And they were given a comedy award. And the chasm between what's presented and what is real has become so big. This is the thing about political correctness. What's said in private and what's said in public, that's become now so big that people are starting to see through it. And it's like that, there's thesis, antithesis, synthesis. I think we're at that stage.
I just want to piggyback off of that. I think this is a really important point. So we don't know the trajectory of this, but my concern is that if there's a backlash, and I can see elements in the United States, people have had it. People have had it. The solution is not to go to demagogues who have all the answers because we haven't been talking about things. The solution is not to go to the far right, right? The solution is to maintain an integrity with Enlightenment values, cognitive liberty, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, the things at least that the United States were founded on. The solution is not to seek refuge because you're angry and upset that your institutions have been destroyed by deranged people. The solution is to remember the values that are the glue that move the civilization forward since the Enlightenment. And if we can do that, those fundamental values, public education or the first rate, for example, if we can do that, then we won't have to worry that the backlash will harm us as a society. And I say us, the collective Anglosphere.
And I'm worried about the backlash because I can see the way, and we talked about this earlier about Nietzsche's point about all truths that remain silent eventually becoming poisonous. And it's becoming poisonous. And there are people, and the Christian fascists are the ones I'm terrified of. Chris Hedges writes a lot about this in the US, and to see the way they're trying to hijack, I guess, the freedom movement and the resentment that's lingering in the community about the vaccine, these things are all going to coalesce, I fear, into one lightning moment where you could have someone charismatic and good-looking and come along and dispense with democracy. And if that coincides with an economic crisis, I think we might be in a Weimar style situation.
Are you sure? Given we just turned red, our whole country is, except for Tasmania, it's all now voted against what you're saying, away from a Christian conservative demagogue figure.
Look, I don't think that the numbers are accurate. I mean, I don't want to go say there's election tampering, but I mean, I think in New South Wales, the Labor government got in with 37% of the vote. This is not a whopping majority, and that's 37% of the population. So that leaves, I don't know, maths isn't that good. There's a lot of other popular people out there who identify with that.
I do want to say this because I think it's important. So my own belief is if you're 18, you have a right to live any kind of life you want. You can love anybody you want. You can undergo any surgery you want. You should be able to live free in a free country. And we need to be careful that I agree there's a tremendous danger of a backlash, that we don't deny anybody the rights to live as they want.
Where do you draw the line? Pedophile?
Well, I'm talking, I specifically said above the age of 18, right? So if you want, in the context of this, I'm thinking about people who want to transition. You know, if you've, I think that there is a danger in an overcorrection, and I think we need to be incredibly mindful about what that means for us as a society.
Okay, well, yes, exactly. Gentlemen, good luck with trying to get the pendulum to fall neatly, nicely, and just in the centre, because it's way over here at the moment. And okay, thank you very much, both of you, for being here. Corey Wyatt, here for Comedy Festival. We've
I've got
ready.
some flyers here. You can grab on the way out if you want to distribute those to your friends and family as my comedic propaganda. I'd be most grateful.
If it's anything like the performance you gave at the beginning, that is excellent. Peter Boghossian, thank you for coming all the way from the US and doing this. This is very much needed, and I'm not hearing these conversations in an Australian context.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for everybody for playing. We appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you to Reid for coming. It was very good to have you here, sir, running the show. Let me just announce our next panel and we will get you all home. So on the 6th of May, I think she's gone now, but we have here, Saturday, 6th of May, lunchtime. There she is. The voice for Victoria. No, the voice of Victoria. Which way am I supposed to say it? Yeah, I know, I'm just hassling. So Emily will be here on a panel. So the topic is the future of Australian politics. We'll have Emily, we'll have Luke Donnellan, who was a minister in the Daniel Andrews government until the most recent election. He's a nice guy. He's a good guy. I find his ethics horrific, but he's a nice guy, and I like him, and he won't mind me saying that. Who else do we have? We have Ken Phillips from Self-Employed Australia, and myself. We're going after a greenie. I'm sorry I haven't been able to tell you who that person is, but they just keep on cancelling on us. So we're going to go for someone who can bring the green left, maybe woke perspective for the future of Australian politics. Thank you for everyone watching. The reason why we're here tonight is because people bought a ticket to be here. If you want to be at our next one, check it out on our socials. And Discernible exists because of locals. Discernible.locals.com is what keeps us on the air. Thank you all for coming tonight, and see you for meet and greet.
Okay, now, from the beginning.